This is Bonnie, and you're listening to UC3P.
Hello there, and welcome to the first episode of the new Just China News Pulse series. I am your host, Gregory Wong, and in this new series, we will bring you the brief on the latest developments in and about China in the fields of economics, culture, and public policy. In this episode, we'll be diving right in and taking a look at the valuation of the Chinese yuan, small business expos, Singles' Day sales, and more. First up, we go to economic correspondent Michael Gottschalk to explain for us the relationship between the Chinese yuan and the US-China Trade War. Over to you, Michael.
As American and Chinese negotiators revive talks in hopes of reaching an agreement ahead of the G20 summit in Argentina, the US dollar continues to surge in November, as it has reached its highest level in more than a year, while the Chinese yuan continues to slide against the dollar amidst trade uncertainty. This all stems from what has been described in colloquial terms as an ongoing trade war between the United States and China. The US has imposed tariffs on Chinese products ranging from baseball gloves to network routers, with China retaliating with its own tariffs on US exports, including beef and beer. The Trump administration has slapped tariffs on approximately $250 billion from Chinese exports. Despite the fact that a weaker yuan helps reduce the effects of tariffs on Chinese goods, Beijing is signaling that they are in support of a stronger yuan. A weaker yuan might encourage an outflow of capital from China. That would raise borrowing costs at a time when Chinese leaders are trying to shore up cooling economic growth. Forecasters say that they expect Beijing to step in to prevent the yuan from breaking to 7 against the dollar. While that level has no economic significance, it can add fuel to U.S. complaints about currency controls. President Trump consistently labeled China as a currency manipulator throughout his 2016 presidential campaign, as his trade dispute stems from one of Trump's campaign promises to fix China's, quote, long-term abuse of the broken international system and unfair practices. While the U.S. currently imposes a 10% tariff on all Chinese goods, bigger confrontation seems to be on the horizon, as those tariffs will jump to 25% this January. This all comes to a head as Trump and Xi will meet at the Group of 20 meeting with hopes of quelling trade tension. Even if a deal is reached between the two leaders, it may only be a temporary remedy that will not affect the dynamic of two global superpowers increasingly on collision course.
Thanks, Michael. Continuing on the issue of the trade war, we have business correspondent Wang to give us insight on how businesses are reacting to the trade war at the world's first International Import Exposition, the CIIE.
China just held the world's first International Import Exposition in Shanghai from November the 5th to November the 10th. The China International Import Expo, or CIIE, branded the event with the theme New Era, Shared Future. It aimed at strengthening the connection between the Chinese market and the world in trade liberalization and economic globalization. Let's take a look. According to the CIIE Bureau, a total number of 3,617 companies from 151 countries and regions showcased their products at the expo. Over 570 new products, technologies, or services were first introduced to either the Chinese or world market. More than 400,000 domestic and international purchasers proposed deals topping over $57.8 billion at the end of the expo. In his keynote speech, Chinese President Xi Jinping urged the world to build up an open global economy. This stands in contrast to the glowing US-China trade war, where over $3,016 billion in tariffs have been levied between the two countries. Yet, while the United States boycotted the expo, over 130 U.S. companies attended, attracted by the Chinese market's growing purchasing power. It is a good start for Chinese government to relax tension in U.S.-China trade war through non-governmental business cooperation.
Thank you, Yue. We now shift gears to a more cultural focus, with business correspondent Annie Ma elaborating on the Chinese Singles' Day phenomenon and how e-commerce giants like Alibaba get involved.
Regardless of China's slowing economy and the heated trade war with the US, we still witnessed a legendary sales figure of over 200 billion on a single day at a single website called Tmall, owned by Alibaba. Yes, it all happens on the day of November 11th, known as Singles' Day. it is usually a day to celebrate the pride to be single, until Alibaba completely redefined it in 2009 to be what is now known as Double 11 Shopping Carnival. Due to its popularity, this marketing campaign was soon followed by other e-commerce businesses, as well as traditional brick-and-mortar stores. However, when the sales numbers sound so crazy, sales growth appears to be not as strong as before, and it's actually in decline. Last year's growth rate is 36%, but it slows to 29% this year. Some young Chinese consumers would say that items are not actually cheap when the coupons and discounts are vague and misleading. Others would say these so-called sales carnivals are so prevalent that they would not bother to take the Singles' Day sales seriously. Indeed, a growing number of consumers are tired of waiting in front of the screen to buy what they want, and are shifting towards an offline shopping experience. Not only are consumers concerned about these crazy numbers, the SEC is also prepared to step in and investigate the way Alibaba reports its financials, questioning the firm for possibly tracking sales in an unstandardized manner. Besides the issues with its numbers, as a publicly traded company, Alibaba also needs to consider its corporate social responsibilities. That is, when the firm's action naturally imposes negative externalities on the general society. With such an unimaginable online sales, overpackaging is obviously a serious concern. An alarming amount of trash is produced, while the board is enjoying profits from these alluring numbers on the book. In the long run, however, a firm can only prosper when it takes into account the welfare of multiple stakeholders, including our environment.
Thanks, Annie. We'll be back after the break. Shifting focus away from business issues, we have environment correspondent Jin explain to us the recent chemical leakage in the coastal city of Quanzhou and its impacts on the local community.
On November 4th, a tube connecting a vessel and a wharf broke in Quanzhou, a coastal city in East China. 6.97 tons of C9 aromatics leaked into the water, causing more than 50 people to become ill, contaminating the water and threatening the local fisheries. Aromatic solvent C9 is a volatile organic compound produced from oil refinery, and is usually used to produce paints and printing inks. Inhalation of or exposure to high concentration of C9 can cause individuals to suffer from headaches and dizziness, vomiting, irritations of eyes, nose, throat, and lungs, and other symptoms. The contaminated water initially poisoned a substantial amount of marine life, ruining local aquatic products and exposing consumers to increased risk of cancer. Affected local residents and business owners are seeking economic compensation. The local environmental bureau stepped in to clean up the contaminated water. Yet some specialists question the effectiveness of the chosen solution. The Bureau's investigators discovered that a lack of tube maintenance caused the leakage. They also found that the leakage could have been avoided if the company or regulatory agency had fully complied with the regulation and updated the pipe in time. The incident of C9 leakage in Quanzhou was not simply an accident, but a human error.
Thanks, Jin. Our last item for this episode is from culture correspondent Jinglin Fu, who looks into the tax evasion scandal of Chinese superstar Fan Bingbing. Over to you, Jinglin.
After nearly 4 months of silence, Fan Bingbing issued a formal apology letter on her Weibo page on October 3, 2018. What was Fan, one of China's most famous actresses, apologizing for? 4 months ago, former CCTV host Cui Yongyuan accused Fan Bingbing of evading millions of dollars in taxes. Cui also published images of different contracts signed by the actress for completing the same job. However, the amount of pay Fan received differed in these contracts. Fan denied the accusation at first and criticized Cui for violating the business privacy. However, after the state announced an investigation into the case, Fan remained unusually silent on Weibo until her apology letter was issued, in which she expressed her shame, guilt, and acceptance of relevant penalties. Actually, Fan Bingbing is not the first high-profile actress implicated in tax evasion in China. In 2002, actress Liu Xiaoqing was fined $860,000 and was imprisoned for a year. The penalty was for tax evasion of around $800,000 from 1996 to 2001. Due to an amendment in 2009 to the criminal law of the People's Republic of China, which restated the crime from tax theft to the more neutral tax evasion, Fan was able to avoid imprisonment. However, she had to pay a large penalty of nearly 4 times the amount she evaded in taxes, which added up to almost $70 million. According to the tax authorities, since this was Fan's first offense, she would not face criminal charges as long as she and her company paid her fine and unpaid taxes.
Thanks, Jinglin. Well, that's it for us here for this episode. I'm your host, Gregory Wong, and on behalf of all of our team here at UC3P Just China, we thank you, our listener, for tuning in to this first episode of the Just China News Pulse. We wish you good health, good fortune, and as always, good grades. Come back next time for more on the latest developments in and about China.